to the Real Recovery Show. Our episodes air every week at noon on Fridays. And all of our episodes are on a variety of platforms, and you can go to themeetingspace.com to check them all out. And today I am joined here with a good friend of mine, Shawnee, Morris, who I've known for years, who I met when I used to have a meditation meeting at my house. And it was just a group for people in recovery. And we would meditate together. And a lot of times people would come to this meeting and learn how to meditate for the first time. People who had long-term recovery even. And so it was just a really powerful meeting. A lot of open sharing and snacks and drinks. And it was in my house, and 50 people about every Wednesday night. And it was just phenomenal. And then I don't do that anymore, but I did that for several years and just filled my house with a lot of joy. And so Shawnee and I got close because she was a regular, and we just, she's just amazing, and you're about to find out why. So Shawnee has 41 years, 41 years of continuous sobriety off of drugs and alcohol. And she works in recovery, in treatment, and she has for a long time too. And there's just a lot of layers to her. She's not the same person she was when she first entered into her recovery. She was pretty badass, and not saying you're not still badass. She's definitely badass. She's very badass. But anyway, I'll let her tell her story. I'm just so grateful that you're here and that you're going to share about your life with us and all your realizations. So what was it like, as we often start, for little Shawnee and growing up and before you even consciously got into any addiction?
Well, thanks for having me, Lisa. And gosh, I grew up in Detroit, and you know, if you didn't like to hunt or fish, skate, or do winter stuff, there's really not much to do in Detroit except drugs and alcohol, and that's pretty much what I did. I was in a terribly dysfunctional family. Really just no connection with my family. You know, there's a thing, if you take mice and put them in a situation where they have plenty of food and shelter and space and materials to make a nest, they'll make nests, they'll make little families, and they'll all take care of each other, and someone will be the leader. But if you take the same mice and put them in a limited space with limited supplies and resources, they turn on each other, and that's kind of how my family was. You know, we didn't have many nesting materials. Yeah. And so none of us were close, and you know, for me, I think I was always looking for something to just. I wasn't trying to climb any social ladders. You know, I wasn't trying to fit in. Truthfully, once I started to drink and to use, I just didn't care. I no longer cared if I fit in.
And when was that? How old were you?
I was around 12. You know, when I started, my little friend next door and I, first I started drinking my father's alcohol because he didn't drink at all. So he thought he was a pretty good guy, but he had some alcohol in his cupboard in his room. I took a drink of anisette when I was like 11 years old. I mean, I looked and there was wild turkey. That didn't appeal to an 11-year-old turkey. And there was some Mogan David wine. No idea what that was about. But there was one. I opened it and it smelled like licorice. I'm a kid. So I took a nice, healthy drink. And I remember, you know, I didn't like sputter and cough like most little girls would. I just took a healthy drink of that anisette, and it was hot. Hot in my mouth. It was hot all the way down. And it said, "Hello, little girl. I'm your best friend now." And I used to go back every day and take a little drink of that bottle. All I knew is I liked the way it felt right from that first drink, you know. And eventually I got concerned because a lot of the alcohol was missing from that bottle, and I added water, and then that was no fun. And then my friend and I figured out how to get someone to buy us a bottle to replace it. And so that's how I started. And by junior high, we were all out in the woods outside of the school, you know, smoking a joint before school or drinking something or taking something out of somebody's parents' medicine chest, something. Just so I didn't have to, you know, well, I've heard you say it, the best way I could say it. Anywhere but here, anyone but you, anytime but now, that's where I would like to be. Let's go there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So by junior high, I was drinking and using every day. That's just what I did.
And so what was your social life as a child? Did you isolate, or did you feel part of now that you were drinking?
Yeah, with the bad kids.
Yeah.
With all the kids who got in trouble, that's where I hung out. I didn't have really friends. I mean, my house wasn't a house that was conducive to bringing kids over.
Yeah, me neither.
So I didn't have any visitors.
Yeah.
I did go sometimes to other kids' houses, but I didn't really fit in when their parents were around. And I didn't fit in with good kids. So, I hung out with the bad kids.
Yeah, my house would have been conducive, like, socially, for the kinds of... But I was embarrassed about my house.
Right.
I was embarrassed about how it was kept. So, like, I was embarrassed about how my parents acted. Right. I don't know. I just didn't. I didn't want, if I had friends, to bring them there. And and then when I got into junior high and then high school, I was in my addiction, and I didn't fit in with anybody. Like, I even had the leader of a gang tell me that just don't hate him. Like, 'cause, like, I walked around like all like hating everybody.
Right.
But yeah, no, I identify with that. So you were social but social with people who were also doing those things, like drinking, doing drugs, and stealing things, or yeah.
But other than that, I didn't really socialize. I mean, I isolated a lot because I just didn't fit in.
And how were your grades in school?
I did pretty well in school until probably high school, and then I got pregnant when I was 16.
Pregnant when you were 16?
By a Neanderthal whose name was Earl. Earl Whalen.
Oh my God.
I know. He was a complete and total redneck. And
oh my God.
He broke all my rock and roll albums because that was the devil's music.
I listened
to Tammy Wynette. And he cut up all my bell bottoms because that was devil's clothing, I guess. I don't know. It was horrible.
Yeah.
And I had two choices: marry the Neanderthal. I could keep my baby or give my baby away. So I chose to marry the Neanderthal. And so at 16, I had my son when I was 11 days after I turned 17. I had a baby, and I was pretty much alone. My mother had said,
how old was the Neanderthal?
He was 19. I was 16.
And so back then there were no like statutory rape type things.
Maybe, but nobody pursued anything. I don't know. I mean, I guess he was an adult. That never even entered in the conversation.
But that, later on would have been considered something. But that's interesting.
Yeah.
How'd your parents feel about
I think my mother was just glad I was gone, and she basically said, when I came home and said, it's not, he's beating me up, it's not working, and she said, well, you made your bed, So there was
also the thinking back then too.
Right. And it was just shameful.
Yeah.
Because not many people, had that issue. There was a girl in school who was like one of the cheerleader kind of girls. We did not get along at all until she got pregnant also at the age of 16.
Oh, wow.
But her parents were much more accepting, and, but we became pretty close and bonded over that. Then I had a second child when I was 19.
Wow, same guy?
We were married, and he was not really interested in being a father. There was a lot of domestic violence in our marriage, and he was gone. He did what every good abuser does. He moved me far out into the country. I had no phone, no car.
Wow.
So I was really isolated with those two kids. And he would go to work, and I would take the stroller down the big hill and go to the liquor store and buy something with whatever coins I could find or whatever, and go back up the hill. Easy in the summer.
That must have been really lonely.
It was lonely. Thank God I had alcohol, until our house burned down. That's what kind of got me out of that marriage.
How did it burn down?
Well, apparently it was an electrical fire. We lived in a townhouse, 2-story townhouse, and we were sleeping, and it started in the living room. Some kind of electrical thing sparked, and they figured it was smoldering for a while. It was February 6th, so in Michigan, in February, everything's sealed up pretty tight.
Yeah.
And there was still a lot of snow on the ground. And I do remember, what happened, I guess the patio doors finally blew out, the heat.
Okay.
Blew it up, and that air came in, and it was just like a fire tornado. So my husband, Earl Whalen, jumped up on the bed and said, fire, and then he dived out the window. And across the hall was my 5-month-old baby girl and my 2-year-old son. He left us in there. And I remember running across
he dove out of the window of the house?
Right. Yes. My husband.
How romantic.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, he stole my heart.
And the neighbors said, hey, where's your family? And he went out the front of the building. I ran into my kids' room.
He didn't try to go back in or anything?
He put his hand on the door when they said that, and he burned his hand. But the door was locked, and I don't know. But no, not really.
So how did you get out?
Well, I ran in the kids' room and the door slammed shut behind me by itself. Thank God, if it had shut in front of me, we wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
And I remember pushing that window open, and I took my baby like a football, flung her out the window like that. And there was snow, and I grabbed my son by his little arm and I flung him out. And people do how could you do that? It was on fire.
Yeah.
I had to get out. And then I jumped. And I landed right between them. I didn't land on them. It's like these miracles that happen in our life. Neither of them had any burns or broken bones, nothing.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But we all had smoke inhalation. And
so you were in a two-story,
mm-hmm.
and you flung out and jumped out of the second story?
Yeah.
And no injuries?
Nope. Well, I had burns. I had burns on me. My kids didn't, though. Their hair was singed off.
Wow.
And, but no injuries. For them. So I went to the hospital for a couple of weeks, and I just remember being in the hospital thinking, if there's a fire, he will always jump out the window. Mm-hmm. And he's always going to beat me up, and it's always going to be this way.
It's not going to get better.
Gave me the courage to leave him. It just didn't give me the courage to be on my own. So I immediately jumped into another relationship.
Of course.
Back then, that was when no-fault divorce first started. Mm-hmm. And so we got divorced pretty quickly. And I immediately married our neighbor, Rick, who was crazier than Earl, and took me a few days to figure it out.
But he had the hots for you for a while, you think?
I guess. He had the hots for anything that moved, honey.
Oh, man. So why would he marry you? What was the reason?
Oh, the best reason, because his wife, Maria, ran off with my husband, the Neanderthal Earl.
Shut!
I'm not kidding.
Shut up.
So I married him for about a week and a half, and then I said,
this is
nope.
Before she got sober.
So I got it annulled.
Okay.
And immediately married his brother, John.
Oh, of course.
Well, what else was I going to do?
The problem was, right family, wrong guy. Right. That's what the answer is.
Well, John was much the opposite. He was very nice.
Right.
He was very mild and meek and nice. He didn't drink or use. And he told me, go ahead and go out with your friends. I'll watch those kids. And I said, thank God for you. And I went out with my friends. And, the problem is that love and honesty confuses us when we're in addiction. We don't understand it. And he was way too nice for me. I married him, and we stayed married for about 3 years, but I had to leave him. It was too crazy. I just couldn't understand why he would want to be with me. And I kept waiting, for the shoe to fall. Something's going to happen. So we got divorced. And then I got remarried to someone else. The love of my life.
How many times have you been married?
I have been married 5 times, but I don't count that one that was only for 2 weeks, because my sponsor said I should. But,
so 5 times you don't count it means 6, or
no,
5
4.
times?
I count 4.
That.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the last one, who I married after my love of my life died. Well, I just call him husband. I didn't really count that one either.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, so you're in school. This is before. So go back to that. You're in school, you're drinking, did you graduate from school?
I did not. They wouldn't let me stay in school because I was pregnant, so I was obviously a bad influence.
Yeah.
I did go back and get my GED.
That was the thinking back then.
Mm-hmm.
Like hide it, send the child off, kind of a thing.
There was no, special schools or anything like that. Just get out of school. But when I was 19, shortly before the fire happened, I actually got my GED. And it's interesting because it's kind of where my self-esteem was at the time. My brother-in-law, Billy, a Neanderthal named Billy, he was going to take his GED test, and he said, why don't you come down and take it? And I said, well, I'm out of school, I'm sure I can't pass. And he said, well, just take it, and you'll know what to study. So we took it together 2 days, and then the results came in the mail, and I got a pretty high score. And he got a much lower score than I did. And we looked at that together and said, obviously, they had mixed us up because of our last name. I never questioned it. I'm sure they gave us the wrong scores. We went down to the school to tell them they gave us the wrong scores, and they said,
wow.
No, that's correct. How could I have higher scores than him, right? So, and interesting when I think back on it, how low my self-esteem was at that time.
So for me, the reason I thought that I wasn't the sharpest was because I missed so much school, and so much of what we were being tested on was cumulative, right? Mm-hmm. Like when we took sequential math, if you missed too many classes, like you couldn't figure out these problems anymore. Like you couldn't do the exercises that they gave you if you didn't know what led up to it, it was overwhelming. So I missed classes so much by getting to school late, checking in so I could whatever, and then leaving early. In junior high, I was doing this, and in high school. So I didn't sleep enough, and I was in a brain fog, and I had all this drama, and so I was drained. Like today, if you and I have something come up to heal, or like something's hit us in our life and like we're trying to recalibrate, and maybe it's triggered up some old trauma today, right? Just triggered up some trauma. Just triggered up. Not happening, just triggered up. It throws our day off, right? It throws our day off. We're not optimal. We're not necessarily the clearest or on the beam to the degree that we would like to always be. And we won't necessarily be as sharp. To live in dysfunction, to live in this cumulative trauma, it was like I ended up with an idea that I am not intelligent enough. I ended up with that. That coupled with the fact that my dad was a genius, read a book a night in his alcoholism, right? And I didn't get his love or his approval or anything like that. And so the seeming disparity of that. Today, I don't even have a doubt that I have intelligence, but it's so crazy how for so many years, I would even just say, I don't do math. I can't do math. I suck at math. I would say these things. And like, I'm listening to you and I'm seeing how many people have shitty perceptions of themselves because of situations that happened or the way that they had just so much stress during a period of time of learning and growth, right? Like I was like, I'm not athletic. I can't do whatever because I was never picked on the team in gym. I was so shy and shut down and made fun of, and I couldn't play the game. I couldn't fit in, and I had asthma. I had stuff going on, right? I was a nerd. I was a geek. I spent all my time by myself, right? But so much of our self-perceptions that fueled our alcoholism, stopped us from facing stuff. We were too emotional, we weren't sharp enough, we weren't intelligent enough, and I find you very intelligent. So it's crazy that we had that.
Yeah, I figured it out a few years ago. I'm smart. It took me a long time. It took a long time to figure that out.
Well, maybe.
And it doesn't help when people tell you all the time that you're not smart, too.
Why
you're so dumb. Why did you let that happen?
Yeah, I question your judgment. I got that. I question your judgment. And it's like, where do you think I got the judgment? But yeah, no, I'm with you. It's fascinating. The little ways that we, over time in recovery, look back and go, this is why I had that self-perception that fueled a lot of my alcoholism. Shame fueled a lot of my alcoholism. To me it was either I could always kill myself, or I'm too much or not enough, right? I'm too much or not enough, and I can't stand the way that feels, and nobody loves me anyway, and if they don't really know me, and isolated, alone, separate, feeling low, dark, and then what looks good? Changing the way I feel. Because I can't seem to get there mentally because it's my mind that's making me feel this way, like my own inner bully with all of that negative, shame-based ideas. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think shame is so common, but it's the hardest thing for people to talk about or look at, to look at it, because just bringing it up hurts.
Yeah, because it's the most personal. Never mind what you did. That's hard for people to talk about guilt, right? But to talk about who you think you are, that you believe on a deep level, because that's the kind of thing that we explain to ourselves why things weren't working out in our lives, Like even when I was in a marriage where my husband wasn't touching me or flirting with me or having sex with me or whatevers, I turned on myself and said, oh, it must be because he's seen me sick. It must be because he's seen, my PTSD or my anger or my eating, or I gained weight and he doesn't think I'm attractive anymore. Or maybe there's something wrong with me. You know what I mean? Shame undermines all of it and blocks us from our intuitive connection. We listen to that instead and run on it, and then if it's not healed, it just builds like a snowball into more shame.
Yeah.
Because shame will tell you how to see a situation, and then you get to add your interpretation of that situation to your shame.
And like, why didn't I try harder?
Yeah.
Why didn't I do better?
Why am I not enough?
Right.
Maybe I don't belong here.
Right.
Maybe it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then you get the case of the fuck-its, and you drink and you do drugs and you sleep with all kinds of people and whatever the hell. I mean, I don't know that you had time to sleep with all people. You just married them.
Yeah.
But like, you don't know. I was with a couple of married people here and there.
Yeah. I tried that too.
Not your people.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
I was a good girl. All right, so okay. So now you leave him. Where are we? We got married.
Well,
we were married.
So the thing was, I was living in a trailer park.
Member.
I was in a trailer park called Baco Mobile Home Estates.
Okay.
And there was one double wide trailer in that park.
Okay.
And it was mine. So if you understand trailer park hierarchy, you would understand that I was the queen of that trailer park. I was. I mean, I did have to sleep with the landlord's son, but it was okay.
You had to what?
Sleep with the landlord's son.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was in downtown Caucalin, Michigan.
Was he cute?
Sort of, but I got the double wide, so it wouldn't have mattered.
Right.
And
just one day and see Shawnee in the double wide.
Yeah. One day I was with my friend Peggy about, I don't know, probably 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were drinking because that's what we did. And I see someone walking by the trailer. I mean, we're up high, and I see a hat. I said, that's a very tall person. And I looked out the window, and I see this man with black leather and chains hanging off of his belt and a knife. And I said, oh, be still my heart. That's my kind of guy. And as luck would have it, the next morning I was trying to shove a bunch of clothes in the washer in the laundromat, and he came in and he said, lady, you need to put more loads in the washer. He said, here's some change for the machines. And he put quarters out. I said, I should marry this guy. I mean, honestly.
Quarters, not pennies?
Quarters.
That's awesome.
So I married him. And we had another child together. And he was the love of my life. The first 4 years we were together, we drank and used. That's what we did. He liked to say that I taught him better living through chemistry, and he taught me how to drink. That's probably pretty true. And he kept going into these care units, which was like a 28-day spin dry program. And I just kept trying to support him because I was not having a problem. Right. He's clearly was.
Yeah.
I just like to, party a lot and lose things like the car keys and the car and my morals, my kids,
Where should I leave my
those
morals?
kind of things. And after 4 years, something bad happened, and I made a decision to change. And he'd been trying for a long time, and I knew what recovery looked like, but I had not tried myself. And then I started making a decision to do it different.
So how did you? Okay, gotcha. So you watched what he did. You were around it, and so when you were ready to make a decision, you at least knew that there was a solution.
Yeah.
Even though now this happens oftentimes. This has been a conversation. So here you were. He didn't make it like that long, right? And so, or for whatever. I can't speak, which is really not convenient right now. But so. How you didn't see that it worked necessarily from him just staying clean and sober,
right?
But you knew that there was something there.
Well, he would try. He would try for a while, and he would go to hang out with other people who were sober.
Right.
He never really talked about it. He didn't really do any kind of program. He just would try, and then what would happen? And really, it's shameful when I say it because I didn't know any better at the time. But I would say, honey, you've been so good. Why don't we have a bottle of champagne this weekend? Just, I don't know, it's an anniversary or a holiday or a rainy day and it's Tuesday.
Right.
Let's celebrate. And he would say, okay, why don't you go get something? He'd send the pill had to go get some pills, and I'd send the alcohol to go get some alcohol. And so we went up a lot of all of that, and we'd do 3 or 4 days of all of that. And then he would say, oh gosh, I have to go back in one of those care units. And we'd start all over again. And then finally, after 4 years of that insanity, I just said, I can't do it anymore. I had a very clear experience that morning, July 16th, 1982. And I looked in the mirror which I hadn't really done in a long time. I mean, you can put your mascara on and never really look in your own eyes,
Yes,
right?
so true.
And that
So
morning
true.
I looked in the mirror and I said, God, I don't want to wake up like this anymore. My kids were upstairs, afraid to come down. My husband was resting on the kitchen floor and he was missing his front teeth, 4 teeth. We never figured out where they went. He must have gotten in a fight somewhere.
Wow.
And that's how I woke up that morning. I was sleeping on the couch and
you went to get help. Did you go to a care unit yourself, or?
no, I went to, remember 411? I called 411 and I said, I need the number for a program, and they gave me a number, and I called, and this guy answered the phone and said, well, tell your husband to come here tonight at 7. I'll meet him at the door. And then he said, honey, could you talk to my wife? Sure. I really didn't want to talk to his wife, but I thought, man, I have to do everything,
Yeah.
So his wife got on the phone and she said, hi, honey, I wondered if you'd like to come to one of our meetings. And I said, no, absolutely not. And she said, well, how about tomorrow? And I remember saying to her with a straight face, too, my husband's passed out on the kitchen floor, missing his teeth, blood, puke on his clothes. My kids are upstairs scared to come down. And I said to her, tomorrow is Sunday. That is our family day. I cannot. And she said, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I just thought this lady needed a friend, I felt sorry for her. Finally, I said, okay, I'll come Friday. And I had no intention of going. I just wanted to get off the phone. So I hung up the phone, and I had written down the directions. We didn't have GPS back then. And I went and woke him up and said, go to this place. This guy's going to meet you at the door. And if you don't go, I'm leaving you. And I really mean it this time. And I did. And I have no idea what conversation he might have had that morning in the mirror. But I know that he took a shower and he sat in a chair in the living room all day. And 6:30 he left and he went and met that guy. He was waiting for him. He came home, he didn't talk about it. He went back the next day on our family day. He went to a meeting. And the next day and the next day. And Thursday night he picked me up from work and he said, hey, you told Johnny's wife you'd be at a meeting with her tomorrow. And I said, so? And he said, well, if you don't go, I'm leaving you. And I really mean it. Yeah, he flipped the script on me.
Wow.
So I went, because that morning when I said that, God, I don't want to wake up like this anymore. God said, I hear you, sister. And so I haven't.
It's so important that the person's ready. It's just, if the readiness is not there, it doesn't even matter.
Right.
And we've seen that over the years. Yeah. So this was 41 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
15,060
Did he stay
days
sober?
or something. When we were because we had the same sobriety day. It was cute as hell. They'd give us a cake with 2 motorcycles on it, and I sponsored him, he sponsored me. That cannot work.
No.
One of us had to drink or use. And when we were about 2 years, he went out, and I knew by that time I was sober long enough to know I can't do it anymore. I just can't. And he came home, and he had gone to Michigan to see his mom. We thought she was dying. She was nowhere near dying. And he came home and he got right back in the program, and he stayed sober till he died 13 years later. And those 13 years were really amazing. He got a sponsor, I got a sponsor, and we figured out that the way that you are strong together is to do your program separate. And I didn't pay much attention to his program. I mean, I supported him, but I didn't ask him questions or, I didn't interfere, and he didn't, me either. And so we got strong. And we had our daughter together, my 2 children and his son. So we had 4 kids with us, and we had a good life.
Interesting. Very cool. So at this point, we're going to go to break. And please remember that the opinions expressed here are strictly those of the people who gave them and don't represent any 12-step program or are meant to replace your own intuition or professional medical advice. And we'll see you in a bit. The Meeting Space is a facility with over 100 weekly recovery meetings for addiction from alcohol, drugs, sex, food, gambling, codependency, and PTSD. When someone is scared to go to their first meeting, we walk them through the process, ask them and answer questions to assuage their concerns. Many are court-ordered to attend, and we provide free court papers and teach them the process. Our glass-enclosed, soundproof children's playroom enables parents to be in a meeting while watching their children. We have healing workshops, craft fairs, and special authors who come to teach and sit with our fellowships. During COVID, we were declared an essential business by the County Commissioner's Office. We were kept open so that we can continue our daily work with traumatized chronic relapsers and those who would have used alcohol or drugs in isolation. Local businesses rent our space as well to financially help with this mission, and they get to have a great location for their business meeting or training. The recovery store in the center of our facility provides literature, clothing, medallions, and custom gifts to encourage, aid in, and celebrate a person's recovery from alcohol, drugs, PTSD, or unhealthy behaviors. Both the recovery store and the meeting space are open every day, including holidays. Saving lives, educating the community, reducing social stigma, providing a safe place for people to heal. Our nonprofit is supported entirely by donations by people like you who want everyone to have a place to go to heal. Welcome back to the Real Recovery Show. Before the break, we were talking to Shawnee about what it was like before and in the beginning of her getting into her recovery. And so you're married at this time, and so, you know, you've walked through a lot. I mean, we're talking 4 decades of recovery, you know, which if you're new, that's unheard of. You just want to know, how do you make it through a day, right? Yeah. But I've seen you walk through things too. I've known you for several years, and then have heard about some of the things you walk through. So let's take it through your recovery and some of the things you realize and some of the things you walk through. Like, what was one of the first significant things that you feel like you walked through?
A couple of things in early recovery. I mean, I had a friend that committed suicide.
A friend in recovery or outside?
A friend in recovery.
Oh, wow.
And he was someone who was a celebrity. If I said his name, most people would know him. And I couldn't understand how that happened. I mean, we were right there. You know, how come we couldn't help him? And and I had someone that was a mentor to me, and she drank. And she drank all the way. And her husband called and said, "You guys need to come help her." And she died from her drinking a few years later. Oh. And I thought, how do I not drink if my teacher is drinking, you know? Yeah. But I found someone else to be a mentor, and I followed them, and I found someone else, and I ended up with someone who I walked the path with for about 27 years. And you know, she was there the night my husband died. She was there when I had to go to court with my daughter. My youngest daughter became much more of an addict than I could have ever tried to be, and I couldn't understand. I'm a drug and alcohol counselor, and I was mentoring all these people, and you know, people heard my voice, but not my kid. Yeah, she could not hear my voice, but I wasn't to be her teacher. Yeah, you know,
too close to it. And she was there through the crazier part. You know,
well, she was 18 months old when I got sober, so she really didn't experience.
Interesting.
All that. I know. The other kids, I would have said, of course, they had a horrible childhood, but not her. She was a princess.
However, so, because this is why we're creating the children's program at the meeting space, because even when parents get into recovery, they're now trying to like heal some of the thinking and the behaviors and stuff. So the alcoholism is not, as you know, it's not the drinking as much as it's the thinking.
Exactly.
And so you're taking away the alcohol and the drugs, but there's still the ism. As the ism's trying to heal, she's growing up in some of the ism, right? And so it does affect things. Right. You know, that's why we want to create that, so that the parents can bring the kids, so that the kids can learn things at that age too. Like if I would have learned at that age, like that would have made a big difference. But anyway.
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah, and then, so, okay, so, because we jump around a lot, it was just totally fine. But so now, where were we? So now, okay, so now, no, I don't even know where we are. Go ahead.
We're talking about early recovery.
Yes, early recovery.
You know, I mean, I had a lot of experiences in early recovery, a lot of changes, and And I just figured out that if you just don't drink and you just don't use, no matter what, I'm not going to tell you things get great. Life shows up, life happens, but you'll get through it, and I'm a better person for it. You know, every time you weather a storm. My daughter, see, here's the thing. My sister grew up in the same dysfunctional house I did. Same parents, same everything. But she's not an alcoholic or an addict. When she puts alcohol and drugs in her body, she doesn't get the effect I get. She doesn't like that feeling of, your feet lifting off the ground. To her, that's like a red light because she's wired differently.
Yeah.
When I get that feeling, that's a green light. Yes. Full speed ahead.
Right.
And my daughter had a green light. My other daughter, she didn't like it.
I do believe, it's nature versus nurture. I do feel that we have certain predispositions. Even chemically, brain-wise, but also, dare I say, astrologically. I just feel like there is some truth to people being born at different times and how their personalities tend to go in a certain way. And so you take, and I don't know if anybody's ever done this, but if you take people who are born at different times and how did they handle this dysfunction, and then there's also things were personally towards you that weren't necessarily personally towards her, and also the ages, who was the oldest, how much of a years distance was there? Was she the oldest?
She was the youngest.
And so my brother had me and my sister to be the second and third mother to him, and so he didn't end up the way we ended up, right? And I was the oldest, so I had the hero child stuff going on. Grew up in the same house. Yeah. I was the first one. My mom was like, holy cow, I can't have the child. I need to, I went through all of that. So we grew up in the same house, but we didn't necessarily have the same experience. But there's also, and they're finding this more and more, the genetic components of it, chemically, how we react to things, and why we felt like we had a need for that, how we're even, the way psychologically we even stress out our nervous system, burn down our neurotransmitters, and why even in that situation we will need to have something that will have a certain effect on us because of the way we're thinking and how we're using our brain, So there's so much to it. We can't just, as we can't just compartmentalize and go, well, it's just this. It's so interwoven because, and I'll say this last thing, as people heal in recovery, they could have been diagnosed with manic depression, suicidal ideations, even whatever, bipolar, right? And then they go and they get sober and they start working on themselves and they start doing things like learning to meditate and pray and going into different recovery events and talking about stuff and maybe exercising now, maybe eating better and maybe getting a little sunlight and whatever, but healing some of the traumas and whatever. And then next thing you know, they don't have that diagnosis anymore, right? Right. Because it was partly caused by the solution of the alcohol and the drugs, but also by the thinking being fueling the anger, fueling the depression, feeling, and you know what I mean, and feeding that. So I just feel like it's a mixed bag. Why a person becomes an addict or an alcoholic, but once they click on it, once the mind says, this is my solution to a problem I do not understand. Once, and I've clicked on several things that you don't put in your body. I remember sitting at a blackjack table. I remember saying I wasn't going to go back to the ATM machine. And I remember clicking on it. Yeah. I've clicked on guys. I've clicked on money. Guys. Or spending money.
Or getting angry.
Feeling powerful.
Exactly.
Getting that rush. Or being really depressed, feeling sorry for myself. Yes. There's such a little inner pharmacy that we have, where we can use our mind and our thinking to create that. Yeah.
So I don't know when my daughter had that click, but she certainly did. Yeah. And I had to, I remember trying to talk it to death, and I was told to focus on other people that were around me and let other people take care of her. And that's what happened. Yeah. She went to a different place than I went, but she got clean and sober. She married her husband, who they met on the bus. And he kind of scared me when I first met him, and they've been married now something like 14 years.
Wow.
And she has a successful business, and, she's done
That's
her own
wonderful.
thing. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So how did you end up getting married again after?
Well, David died when I was 15 years sober. He died after a long illness, and grief is hard. Grief is one of the hardest things I've had to experience.
Yeah.
It's not, you're not ever done with it, I don't think. And some years the anniversary passes, it's kind of mild. Some years really hard. This year was really hard. But about, I think it's 6 or 7 years after he died, I was in a meeting, and it had been such a long time. Some guy was kind of flirty. I was like, is he actually flirting with me? What's going on here? What's happening? And he had a little bit more sobriety than me, and I thought that was good. And we had a lot of fun together, so we went on a lot of motorcycle rides, and he proposed to me in front of a whole bunch of people and got on his knee, and I thought, this is meant to be. And we were married for about 8 or 9 years. But, the thing was, first of all, he wasn't David.
Right.
To love him. He just wasn't. And that wasn't his fault,
right.
But he wasn't. And he also, we took the same vows, but they meant something different, And if I just read his resume, he'd been also married 4 times, about 7, 8 years. And so he hit that limit, and it was over for him. And I was still trying to figure out how to make it work. And he was done playing house. So we got divorced. And
did he cheat on you?
No, he didn't. At least I don't know that he did. I don't think so.
Okay.
But he kept getting fired from jobs, which I didn't understand, because I don't get fired. I say when I go.
Yeah.
He just kept getting fired, and he didn't seem to care about that. And
was he into his recovery?
Not like I was, But here's the thing. I remember somebody told me about 5 years after my husband died, someone said, you need to be with somebody, and I really didn't want to look at that, but they asked me to make a list of what I wanted in a relationship.
Yeah, your sex ideals.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I wrote down things like blue eyes, a beard, someone who likes blues music, someone who doesn't have kids but would accept my kids. I know that's selfish, but it was my list. Someone who is in recovery like I am. Motorcycles, those kind of things.
I like motorcycles too. Yeah.
And when I was getting married, about a year after I wrote that list, we were getting our house ready for the wedding, and I happened across that book with that list in it, and I looked at it and said, oh my God, I got everything I asked for. I did. Every single thing on my list. I forgot to ask for a few things, like work ethic, like a partner. Like somebody who, I could give and take with. Like someone who really understood me and communicated with me.
Level playing field.
I didn't get those things. So if I were ever to make another list, it would be different. Not so much the color of their eyes, but how their feet move.
Yeah. I agree. And it's so timely that we're having this conversation, because I'm making my list now.
Good.
Like I kind of did it in my head before, but I actually, even though it's part of recovery is to do that, I never did it. I think there was a part of me that wanted to keep that out of it, because I've always beat to my own drum. Bisexual for a period of time, polyamorous for a period of time, like just didn't really had the idea that somebody else would be able to speak to me about this, but we know more got revealed. So now I'm writing a list, and of course I'm not going to put the color of their eyes on this list.
Excellent.
Or even how much money they have. But I definitely want to be on the same page, and I want to feel like I could go as deep as I want with this person, and they could go with me, and they get me, and they have my back. Yeah. And that they love God. And if they have a motorcycle,
excellent,
that would be good. I do have that, but if they don't, it's okay. I'm going to eventually get another one for myself. But yeah, like somebody who who treats their body like they care about themselves, and doesn't have to follow the same way I eat. But I would need somebody who cares. And yeah.
I teach a class about the 5 things everyone wants and needs in their love relationships, and every human being wants the same things, and I could prove that. I was taught that in a college class, and it's communication, understanding, like you get me and I get you, trust, respect, and give and take, all the things you just mentioned.
We have that.
We do.
Yeah,
we absolutely
it's
do.
why there are people in my life that I feel like are like solid in my life. Like even if I don't talk to you for a long time, there's an energy about us, like it's very comfortable, positive. It's just love, you know. We don't even have to agree all the time because we haven't at points, and we play different roles in each other's lives in points too. But there's a feeling like I know your heart and I know your soul, and I think you're beautiful.
Thank you.
And
it's mutual.
Yeah, and I love you, and it's kind of funny because when when I had the recovery store and I had the guidance to open the meeting space in the recovery store on Rainbow, I had heard that something was happening over at Solutions because people were saying that if I built the meeting facility that they would move meetings over, and I was like, why, like what's going on over there? And I was really confused because I didn't want to feed any rumors. And so this is how God works. I happen to know somebody that works for Solutions, and so I called up Shawnee on the phone and I was like, how's work? Funny you should ask me that.
Yeah.
She's like, work's not so good, and this is what's happening, and it was really grateful because she is, like I just said, a trusted person to me. Like I could trust what you're saying, and without a doubt, and I was able to help people navigate that. And I thought we were just opening the meeting space. We were going to start all the meetings, and you build it, they come kind of thing. And then when Solutions closed, we ended up starting, I think, with 40 meetings or something. So it was crazy.
Just 3 miles down the road.
Yeah, Serenity got some, and we got some, and whatever. So you've walked through a lot of things, and one of the things you've walked through is some health stuff.
Yeah,
and so
recently.
People have reservations sometimes where they think, if I had this happen, I would drink, or I don't know if I would be able to stay sober. And like we just talked about how you've gone through somebody dying, gone through divorce, gone through your child going through addiction, and you stayed clean and sober. But let's talk for a second about walking through some of the health stuff that you walk through, because you are a badass. And you should see the back of her car. She has written on it. It says, my boobies.
No, check your boobs. Mine tried to kill me.
Check your boobs. My boobs tried to kill me. Oh my God, it's so funny. But it wasn't funny at the time. But you walked through that bravely, spiritually.
Well, where are you going to go?
Trusting God.
Wherever you go, there you are, right?
Yeah.
So you have no choice. And what is that saying when you find yourself walking through hell? Keep going,
walking.
right?
Yes.
Keep walking.
Yeah.
So, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Well, I had a heart attack, and it seemed to be all controlled. I was taking some medication, and I was fine. And then
that was back when you came to the meditation meetings.
2019.
Yeah.
And then I finally got insurance, so I ran around and doing all the things I hadn't been able to do without insurance during the pandemic.
Right.
And they said, there's something in your breast, and we need to do more. And I was like, well, let's get that over with, because obviously I don't have cancer. Goodness. Right. And then they said, you have cancer. And my left breast, my errant left breast. And about 2 weeks after that, I think my heart said, really, left breast?
I'll
watch
show
what
you.
I can do. Here, hold my beer. And my heart went crazy. And so I started having AFib, which is an irregular heartbeat, like 24/7, literally 24/7. And so I couldn't breathe. I just couldn't breathe. And it kept getting worse and getting worse. And they wouldn't do the breast cancer surgery because my heart, they couldn't put me under anesthesia. At one point the doctor said, well, we could do it without, no, we cannot do it without anesthesia, forget that.
Yeah.
And so finally they did a lumpectomy. It's been about 1.5 years ago, and I still don't have cancer back. I go for my next checkup in a few weeks.
So you didn't have to do chemo?
I did not. They did.
And you didn't have to do radiation? I
was supposed to do radiation. However, my errant left breast is very close to my errant heart, and they chose not to do the radiation. So, I take some medication that's supposed to keep the cancer from coming back, and it causes all kinds of other things.
It's amazing what they know now.
Yeah, but still.
It's amazing that they even know that this particular medication with that particular type of breast cancer.
Mm-hmm. The medication I take so I don't get breast cancer again has caused me to have osteoporosis and tendinitis. And I keep saying, but if you knew that, why didn't you give me preventative medications that they didn't? So now I'm taking those medications too. In my heart, I've had, in the last year and a half, I had 3 major surgeries. I had the lumpectomy, and I had 2, I think it's called a sublation. It's like an ablation, but a little different. And the first one helped a little bit. The last one helped a lot. And so I no longer have AFib. That's gone, because I really am a badass. I'm much tougher than I look.
You are.
And the breast cancer is apparently gone. And if I clear this test in December, then I won't have to go back for a whole year. So I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. And so now it's time to, to do other things, to look at my diet, to look at my activity. Of course, I haven't moved very much in the last 2 years. So now that I'm moving other parts of my body, my left knee said, remember me?
Yeah.
So I'm working on all that.
And you had a hip replacement, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, that was years ago.
Yeah.
That was life-changing. I'm so
I remember
grateful.
that.
Now I need a knee replacement on the other side. I'm old. And parts are breaking.
You had a hip replacement when you came to my
I did.
meetings.
Yeah, remember I could barely walk, and then
I remember that. And I was like, you're the bionic woman now.
It's just that people have those issues whether they have a drug and alcohol issue or not. It's just life stuff, And I'm really clear that I didn't take good care of my body for many years.
Yeah.
It really, when I stopped taking care of my body was when my husband was sick. Part of that was paying attention to him, taking care of him, and part of that was just, emotional eating and not really having the time to shop, to cook, do things.
Yeah.
And it got worse after he died. And now coming back from that, I'm 67 years old. And which, I don't know, that blows my mind to even say that out loud.
52 blows my mind. I get it. I'm like, wow, because we never thought we would live this long.
30. I knew I'd be out of here by 30. Yeah.
Bonus round. So, but it's having the attitude of one day at a time, meditating. You work with clients, you meditate with them, you have a singing bowl. You've incorporated that into your day, and trusting God and walking through it. Because, we walk through these things, and we don't walk through these things. Because I've had a lot of health problems. 10 years ago, I nearly died and all that stuff. I had to fight for my life and organ failure and all the things, whatever. But we don't, the strength doesn't come from who we think we are, being the badass that we may think that we are anyway. The real power that we're tapping into makes us the badass, makes us go, my God is bigger than this.
Right.
And I'm going to trust that God one moment at a time. What's the next decision? What's the thing? How do I see this? And if I start to, the mind's so powerful that, and I really learned this when I was sick, that my mind had to be all in to think positively and to heal. I couldn't entertain people feeling sorry for me, so I didn't want to even talk to most people about it. I didn't want to feel the energy coming from people.
Or that, oh, honey.
Yeah. No, I needed to be like, okay, we're going to make this. We're going to do this. What's the next step? And I had moments where I would be crying and what the F. But I also know the mind is so powerful. It's so powerful that it could destroy me, or it could heal me.
Absolutely.
If I'm tapped into the right way of thinking. And so recovery is so much more than not drinking and learning how to stay not drinking or not doing drugs. It's so much more than learning how to live without having to drink or do drugs. It's also learning how to live life on life's terms, learning how to handle and to even capitalize on some of the things that come up as opportunities to heal psychically, heal, forgive, get closer to God. Because I was super close. So I was meditating and going to recovery things and Whole Foods and the doctor, and I was getting spine treatments every day. And my life became very simple and very focused, and there's a benefit in that. It was one of the horrible things of being really, really, really sick with something that you think you might die from, right? Because you don't know the outcome yet, right? but it forces you to let go of all the extraneous stuff that would normally keep you caring about stuff that doesn't matter.
Right.
Gives you a perspective and the focus that ends up happening on this thing. It seems like it's so bad, but you did that. You focus, what's my next thing? What do I need to do? And not get caught up in all this extra stuff.
Oh, and thank God for my job,
Yeah.
where people have real problems. Like, I mean, doctors would say, would you like me to write you out of work? And I think, no, I don't want to stand with this head.
Right.
And I go to work, and I was taught to put my hand on the doorknob and say, God bless everyone in this place. And then they come in and they have issues. And right away, I'm not thinking about me.
Yeah.
And I really think that's what saved me during this last couple of years.
It also taps us in when we sincerely want to be helpful to another person. That says, okay, I sincerely want to be helpful, so I will focus on what really helpful feels like.
Right.
And I want that. So I'm giving, and I'm trusting God in the process.
Right.
I'm trusting that there is a solution, and I'm extending that energy to somebody else, and that heals too.
Yeah.
That does.
Yeah. And be an example. Sometimes say, well, I have a headache, whatever. I have cancer. Okay. So let's get through this.
You have a headache, I have cancer.
It's so cute.
Oh my God.
But truthfully, when David died, I could not, it was so hard to accept it. And I couldn't find anything good, any purpose in it. I had to make it meaningful somehow. And that's why I talk about it a lot. Because I didn't have to drink, I didn't have to use, I didn't have to dishonor what we had created in our lives together.
And you got to have that relationship.
Mm-hmm. And
some people live their entire lives.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why you had that amazing relationship was because you guys got sober.
Mm-hmm. Survivors of a shipwreck, right? So I'm grateful for that and all of the experience. I really understand that I am on a path. We're all on a path.
Yeah.
Full of pebbles. And if I wanted to just remove one of those pebbles, it's not like that changes, everything changes. So I kind of like where I've ended up. And so I'm grateful for all those pebbles and even the colossal rocks.
Okay, so we're nearing the end of our hour.
Mm-hmm.
That went fast,
it
didn't
did.
it? But we love talking to each other, so that's how it rolls. Is there anything that you would like to share as your last comment to?
I guess just, meditation is so powerful. And I wanted to say this because the first time I came to the meeting at your house, I thought, this is weird. I don't know anybody here. Mm-hmm. How am I going to get into a meditation? And I was surprised how easily I went into it. And we were meditating for 5 minutes. And I remember we changed it to 10. And when there's a group of people with that like consciousness, it's very powerful. Yeah. It's very powerful. And I just was addicted to the meeting. And that's the thing about all of this, whether you're struggling with addiction or your health problems or money problems or whatever, look at the people that you're around and what energy they bring into your life. What kind
is it supporting it or not?
Right. And you don't have to throw people away. You don't have to take your love away, but you might need to love people from a distance, if you're trying to heal and they're not.
Absolutely.
So,
You can't get clean in a mud bath.
Yeah. But that's where the lotus flower grows, right?
Yeah.
Only in a muddy swamp.
Yeah.
A beautiful flower. So you got to have some mud in your life.
Yeah. But it wasn't, it's growing up. It's seeking the light.
Yeah.
It's going, enough of you.
We're so smart.
We're so cute and wise and stuff. All right. Well, thank you so much. I love you to pieces, and I'm so grateful that you came on the show and that people get to hear about your life, your experience, and all of that. And thank you for joining us again on the Real Recovery Show. If you'd like to be on a future episode, please let us know. You can hit us up on the contact form on themeetingspace.com. That's themeetingspace.com. Or you can fill out an intake form or catch me on Facebook and message me on Facebook, and we'll talk about it. So thank you so much, and thank you guys again, and we'll see you next week.
Okay.